Happy Sunday, everybody. So I am just pouring myself a cup of coffee, and this time I am adding Da Vinci sugar-free caramel to my coffee. So, and it is a favorite of a lot of people. It's not one that I use lots and lots, but I'm just kind of in the mood for it today. So we are going to play with some fresh herbs, we're going to play with some dried herbs, and we are going to make something absolutely delicious. So I hope you stick around because we have lots to do today, and I am excited to be here with you to do it. So I need a sip of this caramel coffee. Yeah, I need to do that more often. I don't know why I don't. Okay, so it is that time of year when people are harvesting their herbs and they're bringing them in and drying them so that they've got them for the winter, and that's awesome. And if you have a herb garden and you can do that, that's fantastic. And if you're not bringing them in and drying them, make sure that you use as much as you can. And today we are definitely going to be using some of the as much as we can. So I didn't plant lots and lots of herbs this year, which is a little bit unusual for me. Usually I do. But I did plant some, and I'm going to show you what I planted. So, rosemary, this is absolutely one of my favorites. And again, I did not put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Look at that. And there we are, not disturbed anymore. Okay, so rosemary is so fragrant, and it's one of those things that people either love or they hate. It seems there doesn't seem to be a middle ground on this. I absolutely love it. My husband, not so much. Hi, Mom. I'm glad you're here. And if you're joining me, please say hi in the comments. Let me know you're here. Tell me if you're growing some herbs. Tell me if you're doing keto. Let me know what's going on to you or where you're from so that I can say hi back. Okay, so rosemary, absolutely one of my favorites. Now, I will tell you that I have tried several times to bring my rosemary in from outside and overwinter it, and every single time I do, it dies. So this year, I'm doing a little bit of research. Yeah, so another thing that I have growing outside, and I have two giant bushes of basil, and basil is absolutely amazing when it's fresh. It's wonderful when it's dried as well, but fresh basil in your water, fresh basil with strawberries, not growing herbs. Yeah, well, rosemary is, in my opinion, hard not to love. And basil as well, one of my favorite herbs. And then my third one that I have growing in the yard, and I need to pick off a couple of ends on this still, is chives. And I love chives. They're kind of a mild onion, but one of the things that I love about chives is they're very low in carbs. And we're not going to be using lots and lots of this. Now, I have continued mostly on my carnivore journey. It's kind of more ketovore, I guess, because we are going to be adding some fresh herbs and making a compound butter. If you've never made a compound butter, you're going to love this. So that's the fresh herbs that we're using, and then I am going to introduce you to TSL Organics brand new fish seasoning, which is awesome, and so we're going to be looking at that as well. So with fresh herbs, I am using half a stick of butter. So this is 58 grams-ish. And I will be adding half a tablespoon of fresh herbs to half a stick of butter. So 1 stick of butter, 1 tablespoon of fresh herbs, half a stick of butter, half a tablespoon. And you can mix and match however you want. So I'm going to use a little bit of, now you got to watch, because now part of the damage is from some hail the other day that we had come through here that made me very sad because it bruised up a few things. But we're going to use a few basil leaves, and when I say a tablespoon of herbs. I'm talking about a chopped tablespoon. Now, something to remember when you're using herbs, the more you cut it, the more surfaces you add to something, the more flavor you're going to get. So if you take a whole clove of garlic and you throw it in a pot of soup, you're going to get a little bit of garlic flavor. If you mince that garlic really fine or you puree it, you are going to get way more garlic flavor from that same herb or from that same clove of garlic. And the same thing is true with any herb. The more surfaces you have, the more flavor it's going to release. And the longer you let it sit, the more flavor it's going to release. So I've got a few basil leaves here. And so I'm going to, now last time we used basil, I'm going to set these back in the bowl for a minute. The last time we used basil, if you were here, you might remember that I did what I called chiffonade, and that is a French term that means little ribbons, I think. I don't know. I'm not going to try and figure it out. I just know what it looks like. Now today, I'm going to start that way, but then we are going to mince this really well because we want lots and lots of flavor in our butter. So if you don't have fresh herbs, we're going to talk about dried herbs, and you can use dried herbs absolutely. And I hope if you're buying dried herbs that you're getting them from TSL Organics. And I want to thank the people of Wetaskiwin and Rimbey and Lacombe and Ponoka for being so supportive of TSL, and everyone else that has traveled to come and support TSL. It is so awesome to be meeting people that are celiac or gluten intolerant, maybe not celiac, type 1 diabetic, type 2 diabetic, and know that I can provide something for them that is going to help support their health. It just makes me very, very happy. So thank you for your support, because it means more than just sales. It just makes my week very special being able to meet all of you. Okay, now we are going to, that is not the one I want. That's the one I want. I knew I had it sitting there. Now we're going to put the basil in the bowl, and then we're going to carry on. Now that is probably about a tablespoon of chopped basil. So you want whatever proportions of whatever herb you like, and if you don't use it all, you can pour a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil in there and put it in ice cubes, or if you have the ice cube bags, they're not great for the environment, so I don't recommend it, but just throw them in the freezer, and then when you need some fresh herbs from your garden, or you can dry it too, but when you need some fresh herbs, you can just pop one of those ice cubes out, and it should be just enough oil in it to cover the herb, and that's going to preserve it much better than water would. Some things you can make ice cubes out of, other things you don't want ice cubes. You just want the oil to solidify. You could also use walnut oil, I guess, although I think that would get pretty expensive. It would taste wonderful though. My preference is avocado oil because it's a very neutral oil. And you'll notice that with the chives, I'm cutting these very fine because I want lots of chive flavor. So these could not be a whole lot fresher because I picked them about 15 minutes before we started hanging out. Now I think for right now that's going to be enough. I'm pretty sure you guys don't need to watch me chopping herbs for the entire time we're together. So when you are cooking meat, if you're cooking steak or hamburgers, any type of beef, now I'm just going to add this to our bowl. That has the basil in it that we just chopped, and I have little bits of little bits of chive bopping around all over the place. It's like these things are spring-loaded. Okay, there we go. Now for the rosemary. Now with the basil, you can chop up the stem and use it if you want to, or you can puree it. You're going to get beautiful flavor from the stem as well. Now the rosemary, I don't know, maybe you could definitely use the stem in some mirepoix if you were going to be removing it. So if you are making some kind of soup or stew and you want some rosemary flavor, you could save the sticks for that, I suppose. Okay, but just pull them backwards off the stem. And that is all you need to do. Now, rosemary is incredibly pungent. So, because this is going into butter, we want it cut up fine. We also want to make sure that we don't have any of the rosemary sticks in there. Sticks? Twigs? I don't know. Okay, so there. Now, this little bit of rosemary is going to be way lots for the mix that we're doing. And use your nose to taste. I know that sounds crazy, but use your nose to taste. Smell things. If it smells good, it is far more likely that it will taste good. If you have ever walked into some place that is cooking something that you don't like, you don't necessarily have to taste it, because when you can smell it and you go, oh, that's a pretty good guess that you're not going to like the taste of it. So we really taste with our nose first. And if you've ever noticed, if you have a cold, you don't taste the same. Yeah, you don't taste the same. You don't taste food the same. I remember my mom telling me a story about a lady that she knew when I was just a baby, or I think she was pregnant with me actually, and the lady had no sense of smell, and she said in front of my mom, I have never smelled good. So, not exactly what she meant, but I think my mom actually kept her composure and didn't laugh at the lady, so kudos for that. I'm not sure that I would have had the same composure. Okay. So there is our little bit of fresh rosemary. So we've got about a third. No, that's maybe about half as much rosemary as we had basil and chives, but that's okay because it is going to give us a ton of flavor. Now, I am not adding any fresh garlic to this time. Garlic in a compound butter is almost always done, but this time I do not want garlic. Now, I'm going to show you with my herb blend. Oh, and look at that. There is one big piece of chive that didn't get cut all the way through. That's okay. Now, with this herb blend, make sure that it is well mixed, because you don't want all rosemary or all basil. Not that all of any of them would be a bad thing, but okay. There. Now, because we're using half a stick of butter, we only want about half a tablespoon of fresh herbs. So we'll do half-ish. And that is going to give you huge flavor. Now, if you are cooking a steak or cooking a burger, or now in a frying pan, because you want to baste it with this oh, well, that just happened. Okay, well, I guess we're not going to be using that, but we are going to be saving all of these beautiful herbs that are on here. Well, you know what? We just got to roll with it. So that's how that's going to go. Now we need to get all of these beautiful herbs back in the butter. This has been an interesting day for breaking things. Well, not necessarily breaking things. I almost broke my toe this morning. A couple of weeks ago, I stubbed my toe and it turned absolutely black and blue. Today, same toe on the other foot, my baby toe, I dropped a jar and it landed right on the knuckle, and so now my left foot is all black and blue. Okay, now this needs to be mixed in here really well. And I cannot stress this enough, because you want the flavor from these amazing fresh herbs to be put through the butter very evenly. And when you go to use it, you want to be using a piece of butter that has the same amount of herbs as the next piece, so you're getting a consistent flavor. So you can do this in a bowl, and if you're planning on using it right away, you can leave it in the bowl and you can take it out and scoop it out with a spoon. If you are planning on putting it in your fridge and keeping it for a while, which I definitely am, then you can take it out and I will show you how to make it pretty. Okay, I need to open one of these. There we go. Now this is absolutely, I don't use cling wrap lots and lots, but this stuff is awesome. It's called Press and Seal, and I really like it a lot. And I don't need a lot for this, I only need a little bit. Okay, now we are going to scrape this out of the bowl, and we're going to put it in the plastic wrap, and we're just going to make it into a shape that's going to let us cut portion sizes off of it more easily. Okay, so there is that. So now we have it in here. We're going to just roll this up. This sticks really well. And just make this into a butter log. Now this butter has been sitting out so that it's room temperature. You want to make sure that you squish it down, because otherwise it's going to get all caught in the plastic wrap, and then just twist the ends, and you can now put this in the freezer or the fridge, and when you need it, you have some compound butter and it's ready to go. So that is compound butter number 1 that we made a little bit of a mess of, but there's nothing really new about that in this kitchen, is there? Okay, now I'm just going to set that aside, because that is going to be used a little bit later, and I'm going to show you compound butter number 2. Now again, this is half a stick. And one of the things that I am so excited about, and I am really looking forward to taking this to the market next week, is my fish seasoning, my salmon seasoning. And this is dilly and tangy and amazing. And it's a little bit humid in my house apparently, because, okay. Now we are just going to put 1 teaspoon in this butter. Now this might be a little more than you want a lot of times for compound butter, but I'm making this a little bit extra strong, and I'm doing that because I'm going to use it to cook salmon, and it is absolutely an amazing way to cook salmon. It makes it taste so good. So if you are baking your salmon, putting it on the barbecue, wrapping it in tin foil, whatever it is, you want to mix the seasoning in with your butter, or you can just sprinkle it on. Salmon is a beautiful fatty fish that has all kinds of natural fat, and so you can, if you're baking it or wrapping it in barbecue or in tin foil and putting it on the barbecue, however you're doing it, just add that teaspoon in there, and that is going to give you oh my goodness. Yep, that is going to give you beautiful butter to baste your salmon with. And we're just going to clean up some of these herbs that we got dumped all over the place here. Okay, now we have a beautiful piece of salmon. Please, please, people, do not buy farm-raised salmon. You just have no idea what kind of stuff they've put in there. Now, the first thing you want to do before you start cooking this is you want to make sure that it is dried off well. because you're going to be putting it in a frying pan, and you want a beautiful sear. You want that crispy salmon skin, or at least I do. Run your fingers over the salmon and see if you can find any bones. If you do, you want to take those out, especially if you're feeding it to kids. But this fillet is gorgeous. So this is an Atlantic salmon. Whoops, whoops, whoops. Now, look at that. I got a little bit of herb on there. Put that in there. Now, this is a pretty big piece of salmon. So I am going to cut it in strips because I don't need to do all of it. And then, okay, well, it helps if you cut it all the way through. There we go. Now, you look at that beautiful skin on the back, and we want to turn if you're using an induction burner, you want to turn it on, well, about 5 to heat it up. And where is my, I didn't get a cloth out this morning. What do you know about that? Okay, so we want this pan heated up. Now I'm just going to show you. There we go. Am I going to have to get a third camera? I don't know. Now, these will get washed and put in recycle, but not right now. And we are going to, and we are running out of time. When you heat up your pan, make sure, hi Del, make sure that you have your pan nice and hot. That's important. And when you heat up that pan, you want to make sure that you put the skin side down. You can add a little bit of the Compoundn butter just to put a little bit of oil in there, but before you do, you want to turn that down low, 1 or 2. I'm going to do it on 2. Add just a wee bit of Compoundn butter in here so that there's something to crisp up that salmon skin. Okay, now the other butter that has the fresh herbs in it, that is going to be for steak. Now, one of the reasons that you want this pan turned on low, I mean, firstly, we want this skin to get crispy, but we want to do it using butter. Butter and salmon are a beautiful marriage. So you don't want to burn the butter. And if you're not going to burn the butter, you need to turn it on low. And once you get that pan hot, and it sure doesn't take long, you want to cook the skin side down for 4 minutes. And don't go longer than that. Overcooked salmon is going to be dry and gross and yucky and yeah, not nearly as good as it could be and should be. So 4 minutes, skin side down, and then you want to flip it over and you want to do 3 minutes on the other side if it's a fairly thick piece. And this is about 1 inch thick, so it isn't as thick on the other end, but that's okay. It's mostly going to be skin and fat on the thin end, so we're okay with that. Let's move this so you can see it. And look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. Now, while that is cooking, we are just going to add some of that butter on the other side. And when we flip it over, it will be there to help put that taste in there. And when this is done, if you want, you can pour this butter over top of your salmon because we're not doing anything that's going to burn it. So it's going to be absolutely beautiful. Okay. So we've got about 3 minutes left on there. So we're just going to leave that. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates? And I get asked this often. And carbohydrates, simplest answer, anything that you eat that hits your stomach, gets into your gut, and it turns to sugar is a carbohydrate. So, pretty much everybody knows that sugar is sugar. It hits your stomach, it stays sugar, but a lot of people don't understand that starches are also carbohydrates, and grains are also carbohydrates. So you really need to, I'm just going to turn, yeah, it's on 2. It's sizzling away there pretty good. You really need to be watching what it is that you're eating. Now, you're not ready to do keto? That's okay. You can do low carb. So you need to decide what it is that you want to do for you. But knowing what carbs are is the first step. So if it's a grain, it's a carb. And a lot of people don't know this, but rice is a grain, and corn is a grain, and oats that we have been told are healthy grains, they hit your stomach and they turn straight into sugar. So you really want to do your research and find out how many carbs are in whatever size portion you're planning on eating of that particular food. Now this is just sizzling away beautifully here. Oh, look at that. And we are only 2 minutes away from turning that over. Watch for hidden carbohydrates in things. When I first started keto, I woke up in the morning and I thought I had seen, I've talked to you before about the documentary called The Magic Pill, and I highly recommend that you watch it if you haven't already, whether you're doing keto or not. There was a lot of research go into the science that is used to help people. And so after watching that, I woke up the next morning and I said, okay, that's it. I'm keto, and I can do keto because I have hot dogs in the fridge, and I have Smokies in the fridge, and I have bacon in the fridge. I can do keto. And all of those things can be part of a keto diet, but the ones that I had in my fridge had way too many carbs in it, but I didn't know that. So it is so important that you become a label reader. Every single thing that you buy. Now, TSL Organics, one of the reasons that, the big reason that TSL started was because there were things that I really loved, like taco seasoning or Greek seasoning, that I couldn't get anymore because it was absolutely full of carbs. So, if you are, we are at the 4-minute mark, kids. Okay, now watch this. This is going to be magical. I hope. Okay, you want a fish spatula, but mine is metal. Oh, look at that. Look at that crispy salmon skin. Now, we want another 3 minutes on this side. And then we will plate that beautiful little piece of salmon. Now weigh it after you've cooked it, because the weight's going to be different. So, and don't forget to add some more compound butter after you've cooked it for some extra fat. So when you start reading labels, you will find that if you look at baking powder, it's half cornstarch. When you look at sausages, they have breadcrumbs in them. When you look at deli meats, they have sugar and cornstarch and vital wheat gluten. When you look at a lot of things that you wouldn't expect, sour cream is one of my favorite examples. The next time you're in a grocery store, read the ingredient list on the sour cream. Sour cream likely has cornstarch in it. There are so many things that we think we are buying a single ingredient food, like sour cream, and yet it is not a single ingredient food. And because it's not a single ingredient food, if you're type 1 or type 2 diabetic, you eat a portion of it and you check your blood sugar and your blood sugar skyrockets. Not everything needs to be shared with the consumer, or not in a way that's in your face. So when you look at something and you look at the nutrition panel, and I've had people do this so many times, I looked at the nutrition panel and it said 0 carbs. Okay, you looked at the nutrition panel and it said 0 carbohydrates in a serving, and it was bacon, so that's great, except you look at the serving size and it's grocery store bacon that is wafer thin, and it says 2 slices have 0 carbs. In my world, 2 slices is not a serving. 6 or 8 slices is a serving, but not 2. So 2 slices have got less than 1 gram of carbs. And the law says that if you have 0.999999 grams of carbs in something, you get to call that zero. That's what you get to do. So, if something says 0 carbs, that does not mean that it has 0 carbs. And it's important that you understand that. Okay, we are getting very close. Now, I'm going to grab our plate. And I'm going to move the rest of the salmon over because we are right now look at how beautiful this salmon is. And if you touch it on top, now this is going to take about another minute. You want the center of the salmon to be a little bit firm, but you don't want it to turn white like it gets on the outside. If it's white all the way through, it is overcooked. And you don't want to put a lid on it, because if you put a lid on it and it keeps the steam from the center of that salmon in there, it's going to make that skin soggy, and we just work really hard to get that beautiful crispy salmon skin on there. So we're going to give this about another minute. It's going to depend on how thick your salmon is. This one is a little bit thicker, but we're almost there now. Yeah, you can tell when you feel it. If it feels kind of jello-y and jiggly, then it's not quite done. Oh, look at that. That is just absolutely beautiful. And I would say we are about done. So we are going to just flip this over one more time because I want you to see, look at how beautifully this is seared on the bottom, and because it's in butter, that's got a nice crisp to it as well. And now we just warmed up that crispy skin, and we are going to put it on the plate. And look at the butter. Now I'm going to grab a spoon. I want to show you this. If you keep your butter at a low temperature, now you can see the little bits of oh, the light's going to stop you from seeing this. But the butter is not burned. And brown butter is delicious. It's wonderful, but not really what we want for our salmon. So now that we have this done, I'm going to take just a wee little bit more, and I'm going to put it on the hump of this piece of salmon skin and just rub it up and down that whole piece of salmon. How jealous are you right now? Okay, now, if we've done this properly, not only is it going to taste amazing with our compound butter on it, but we should be able to just cut it with a fork. And if you don't like the salmon skin, I don't understand that, but you can easily peel that salmon skin off. So if you're doing a poached salmon and you don't want it on there, that makes me sad, but that is so lovely. Now you can sprinkle the seasoning on there. Or you can make the compound butter out of it one way or the other. It is going to make your salmon magical. That is lovely. I am so grateful that you joined me today, and I hope that you have a piece of fish of some kind that you can add some fresh herbs to, and do this in your frying pan. Wrap it up in tin foil, get that nice crispy skin, and enjoy some fish. If it's trout or salmon, they are absolutely full of healthy fat, and you are not going to be sorry. Watch for TSL at the farmer's market. Yep, for a road trip, Ponoka, Lacombe, Rimbey, and Wetaskiwin. Tomorrow from 3 to 7, I will be at the Ponoka Community Market, and you can definitely come and get some of this amazing seasoning, or you can pick up a bottle of that Da Vinci sugar-free caramel that I put in my coffee. One way or the other. I hope to see you there or at another market. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. That's what I'm going to do. And I am grateful for all of you. Oh, and one more thing. Before we leave, I wanted to show you 1 tablespoon of fresh herbs. Depending on the herb, You want to, if you're using dried, a third to a quarter of what you would use fresh. So 1 tablespoon is about 1 teaspoon. So if a tablespoon is 3 grams, you want 1 gram of dried or a little less. So play with your herbs, the dried ones, the fresh ones. Make your compound butter. Do a little bit at a time and have fun with it. And phone someone that you haven't spoken to for a while. Reach out and let them know that you love them. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon as well. Have an amazing week. I will see you on Friday. And on Friday, you are not going to want to miss this, because on Friday, finally, I am making ice cream. And it's going to be a dairy-free ice cream. Yeah, there is definitely, in some brands of salt, there is sugar. I'm just seeing this in the comments. So read your labels, read your nutrition panel, but always read the labels. If it says 0 carbs and there's sugar in it, or dextrose, or whatever, it is not sugar-free. It is not as low carb as it could be. So go phone someone or hug someone. Do something to get you involved with someone else and help make their life a little brighter. It will definitely make your life brighter too. Thank you for being here today, and I am very grateful. And I will see you on Friday for ice cream. I need some ice cream.